What's up, restoration warriors? It's Frankie here from Get Flood Jobs. I just did a search for water damage restoration in Boise, and the question I want to answer for you in this video is like, how do you actually get your restoration company number one? How does Google decide what goes here? So just the first three that show up for me are sponsored listing. There's Elite, there is bulk restoration, there is disaster cleanup. Who are these guys? Resto Clean Pro, and then there are these. Now these sponsored ones, just only about 15% of people will click on these. So even if you're running great PPC campaigns, the vast majority of the traffic is going right here. These are the people who are actually getting the phone calls and getting jobs from the Google machine. And this is 80-20 to the extreme, by the way, because all the people down here, for the most part, are getting nothing. And all the people in the top three here are getting phone calls left and right saying, hey, we found you on the Google machine. So how do you become one of those? And I think a lot of SEO people make this stuff sound really complex. And there are a lot of minutia that can affect it. But I want to show you the big stuff, the 5 things that really move the needles. And I'm going to show you 1 and 2 because they're very, very closely related. Let's see if I can make my font like super big and all that. And that is simply on page in reviews. So on page really means, in simple terms, like if I actually click on this listing, we'll see that they actually say water damage, right? Like it's, you'd be amazed that this may sound really basic, and they've spelled out their services so that they're, like water damage restoration, carpet cleaning, all the kind of the plethora of services that they offer. And then if you read in the reviews, they probably mention water damage. Let's actually click on a few. We'll read a couple of these reviews. Water damage, water damage. Thank you so much. Now, well, this may sound really obvious. You would be amazed at how often businesses do this just based on their name. So I'll show you a real example because we just saw one. Instead of saying water damage restoration, they're just going with their name, Elite Restoration, right? So even though Elite Restoration may be a good company, this is not optimized for getting found for water damage restoration. It just so happens they're running pay-per-click ads and probably throwing enough money at it that they're getting found, but they would never get ranked organically with just saying Elite Restoration, because that doesn't tell me. If I'm a random consumer, I do a search for water damage restoration in Boise, I don't know that Elite Restoration actually does water damage, right? So you can see it kind of here in their description, and Google has bolded it to make it easier. But the truth is, they're probably not going to rank. And obviously, they have different goals for a pay-per-click campaign, but this would never rank. So I see this all the time, that businesses are not optimized for the very thing they're trying to rank for. Let's see if we just scroll down. I'm sure we'll find one. Let's do quick restore Idaho home Paul Day. So here's an example, right? Paul Davis Restoration, one of the franchises. If I just look at this title, I cannot tell that they do water damage restoration. In fact, it's all about the name, Paul Davis Restoration. I guess it has the word restoration, but other than that, it's like it's really not optimized. Like, I don't know, do you guys fix water damage just if I'm a consumer? So I will probably scroll past that. And Google looks at that. And again, Boise's best cleanup service, Elite Restoration. So a lot of people are leading with their name, and their name does not have water damage restoration in it. And so it's really not optimized. So it sounds really obvious, but your on page has to match the thing they're looking for. Now, Google's gotten really smart about this, by the way, because I know a lot of times people think, oh, that just means reuse the keyword. They're looking for related keywords, like in this case, like maybe flood, cleanup, mold, those things, these kind of things go together. So Google looks for all of those things. The best advice I can give you is just write for a human and do this naturally. And then you'll also notice the second thing that I mentioned here. These are all the places that tend to have, in general, the most and best reviews. That is not an accident. I'm going to tell you, if you don't have the most/best reviews, what you're going to want to do is either use a piece of software like a House Call Pro, or train your techs so that every single time you finish a job, you ask people to leave you a review. Were you happy with our service? Yes. Would you mind leaving us a review on the Google machine? It helps. If you skip this, what you're going to find is somebody else is going to do this. They're going to have more reviews than you, and they may be a worse company, but they're still going to rank higher. But you'll notice it's not entirely just based on number of reviews. Otherwise, this one with only 63 would be second. Again, Master Restoration. Even though they're a water damage restoration company, you can't tell. This one has water damage in the name. Complete restoration services. Again, they mention restoration, but the one that has water damage is the best optimized, right? So if possible, if you can have water damage in your name, that's a big advantage. But obviously, like there's other things you can do on the entirety of this page to spell to Google what it is. And by the way, all of those reviews are like keywords. Google is reading those reviews and seeing how often you update it. So the next piece is, and this hasn't changed in like since Google began, which are links. And links are like, I want you to consider links like a voting system, right? So if you imagine a voting system, it's like if I have 100 people saying I'm cool and you have two, then I'm going to beat you, right? Or vice versa. If you have 100 and I have two, you're going to beat me. But the thing about it is, it's not all weighted equally. Like if three people recommend a restaurant and say, "Hey, it's really good," your Aunt Ethel. I don't know if you guys have an Aunt Ethel. She must be like 80 or 90 years old because Ethel is just an old lady name. But if you have an Aunt Ethel and she does a review, and then the mayor of your city says to use your restoration company, the mayor and your Aunt Ethel, even though they're both probably really cool people, the mayor is obviously going to weigh much higher. So Google is both a voting system, but it's a weighted voting system, right? So they're looking at like how much authority do the places that vote for you have. And I'll give you a big secret. It's going to come, the answer will come in number 5. So we'll get there in just a minute. But a lot of times people ask me, how do you actually get those reviews? And we'll come back to that or how do you get those links in a second? And I'll answer that question. The next piece that I wanted to answer before we get there is something that we call citations or the NAP. But one of the things Google looks at when they click on this listing, they want to show people that are like really the business they said. I didn't mean to click on the website. Let's go back. I meant to, there we go. What they're looking for is this business really where they say they are? So in this case, 1-800 water damage. And so they've got an address here and it's 1859 North Wildwood Street, Boise, Idaho. Now, one of the things Google looks at is they want to see the same name, the same address, and the same phone number every time you're mentioned on the internet. And they're picky about little details. So you see like N Wildwood, ST, even though we all know N means north and ST means street, Google will treat the word street and north and just an N as different. So let's actually do a search on these guys and just see what comes up. And we'll see if we can find some details on 1-800 water damage of Boise. So what we're looking for, what Google is looking for. So for example, they're on, they have their own website, obviously. They're on Facebook. They're on Yelp. They're on Nextdoor, and they're going to be like all kinds of places, Better Business Bureau. And there's literally hundreds of sites like these, but I just want to show you a couple of examples. And you'll notice, look at this. They see there's room for optimization actually here as my messages are popping up because they don't have it mentioned as N Wildwood Street. It's just a little bit different and every little bit counts. You'll see it here again, 1859 Wildwood Street. Same phone number is used, but these are little details that if they tighten these up, they could rank even higher based on the fact that Google wants to see the same thing over and over. So how do you actually straighten those out? Well, if you have a good SEO company, part of the job that they're going to be doing, I guess I got an error for their Better Business Bureau listing, but part of the job they're going to do is they go to the sites and they claim your listing and then they go and optimize it so it all says the same information. So again, NAP, name, address, phone number. With Google wants to see those always the same, right? So that's what a good SEO company should be doing for you. So you'll see here, they got a contact info as a PO box. So that's actually hurting their rankings. There's another little optimization thing. So can you get to number 1 with imperfect SEO? Of course, we just demonstrated that. But I'll tell you, they would be even harder to topple if they straightened out their name, address, phone number. And then the last piece, and all Google's looking for is, again, consistent and most/best number, right? And then the last piece of it is content. And the reason I left this piece for last is because a lot of times people ask me, like, how do you get links? How do you get the mayor to link with you? Well, usually it's you just contribute content to the mayor's website, and the mayor, in that process for you sharing content, will happily share a link, usually in a footnote or somewhere in the article that says, hey, if you're interested in us, check us out here. This is our water damage company. But there's 2 reasons you want to do this. Well, you want to have the most and best content in your industry. Reason number 1 is because it'll make you rank higher. And reason number 2 is because people actually respond to it. So, like, if you think about all the different ways people are looking for you, one person types flooded basement, another person puts emergency flood, another person puts mold, and there are all kinds of different ways that they find you. And somebody types in water damage restoration company, and another person types in water damage restoration companies, and someone says restoration companies near me, right? Even though those are all very similar ideas, Google will show different things. And one of the things is if you have content for all of those searches, what happens, you're going to be frequently found the most. And it also has an impact, right? Like if I click on two restoration sites, one of them has 0 pieces of content and the other one has 150 blog posts and a bunch of reviews and all these people saying they're awesome, I'm far more likely to believe the second one, right? So it also acts as a conversion machine. That's one of those things. It's the biggest reason people struggle with this is because you don't publish an article and get millions of people. It's a cumulative thing. Initially, you publish one article. I went to a city in the Amazon jungle once called Iquitos, Peru, and it's the largest city in the entire world, has about 500,000 people. The largest city in the world that does not have an incoming road. You cannot drive into the city of Iquitos. Either people go up and down the Amazon jungle by boat, or you can fly in with a plane. They have a little tiny airport there. But for the most part, there's no in and out, right? Like with roads. So imagine you want to be discovered in your Iquitos. We have to start building roads. And at first, one might be a dirt road, and one might be a highway, and one might be a super highway. And if you keep doing that long enough, you'll have hundreds of ways to get into your city. And that's when you start seeing massive amounts of traffic and ultimately jobs and business. This is why SEO is like a marathon rather than a single sprint, because a lot of times you publish one piece of content and nothing really happens. It might be a little teeny tiny drip, but if you build hundreds of little drips, what happens is you'll have a big pool of water jobs, unironically. And so these are the 5 things that like really ultimately like move the needle. Is like you have to have the best on page, you have to have the most and best reviews, you have to have the most and best links, you have to have your citations consistent across the web, and you got to have the most and best content. So a lot of times people come to me and say, I want to get number 1, but if you're not willing to have the most and best reviews, don't bother, because like it won't be worth your time, because somebody else will, and they will outrank you simply on the basis of they're giving Google what it wants. And Google wants what the consumer wants. The consumers want a bunch of reviews. The consumers want a bunch of information about you. The consumers want to see the same kind of information. They want a website that like matches the thing they're searching for. So don't think about this as just pleasing Google. This is ultimately like what people want, right? Like obviously Google has a little bit of their own agenda, but for the most part, most of what they're doing is just what people want to find. And by the way, if you guys are interested in getting help on this, we do really bitchin' restoration SEO, and we get you ideally like category 3 flood jobs and help you guys get ranked for those kind of searches. So if you're interested in doing that and becoming your market leader, you can go to getfloodjobs.com. Check us out. And that's all I got for you guys in this video. See you in the next one, and make sure to subscribe.